Hey, I'm driving again, but I wanted to share kind of a story about personal revelation in my life, and then how I've been led by God in different ways. And I kind of just want to give a short background. I grew up in Alamo, Nevada, and after I got home from my mission, I went to Price, Utah for a year. I went a year before my mission for school. And I got married to Kelsey, my wife. And about a year and a half after we got married, my dad passed away. And so we kind of felt like we wanted to stay kind of close to my mom a little bit. We were 2.5 hours away in Cedar City, but some things happened and I got led in a different way, and now I'm back in Alamo, Nevada. So one of the things that happened was I shattered my wrist. I was at work and a dog chased me and I fell on my wrist and I shattered it, completely shattered. And I had to get surgery and started back up working after it had healed, and I'd gone to some physical therapy. And then my wrist never really got full function. Like I worked, but it didn't have full motion in it, and it would hurt when I would work it a lot. And I was in a landscaping company at the time, and so I ended up having to work a lot with it. I found a different job doing cabinets, and I enjoyed that a lot. Still had a lot of pressure on my wrist, but I found that if I held it a certain way, I could work really well with it, and did that. I really liked the job. I liked doing cabinets. There were some things I didn't like about it, but for the most part, it was a really good job, and it was in a town that I really loved. I'd actually prayed that Heavenly Father, that we could live there, that would be spend our lives there. This is 2017, 2018 period, and this is in Parowan, Utah. I really wanted to live there, and it was looking like we had the opportunity to. We were looking at a house to buy, and I got a phone call from a company that I used to work for in high school during the summers with my uncle's company. Well, they were looking to hire an estimator, and that's what I had kind of went to school for. I'm not estimating, but construction management. And they were going to train me as an estimator, and it was going to be in North Idaho, up by Coeur d'Alene. Well, we prayed about it, and my mom was always really supportive of us going up there, and we did. We went up there. We took the job up there, and me and Kelsey and Everett, my oldest, we moved up to North Idaho, and I started working up there. Well, the job I worked up there had it so I would drive a lot. I would, not near as much as I drive now, but I would drive an hour to work from my house and an hour back if it wasn't snowy. If it was snowy, it ended up being like an hour and a half each way. And then periodically I would have to drive up to Bonner's Ferry for a job we were doing up there, and then I also had to drive over to Seattle periodically, probably every other month at least, in Seattle and back. And sometimes even I worked over in Seattle for a week at a time, or in Portland, or I guess Salem, Oregon, for a week at a time sometimes. So I got the opportunity to start listening to videos, and I found I was so grateful for YouTube and how much I've learned from videos on YouTube. When I was in college, I was really not satisfied with college. We did a lot of watching PowerPoints and no practical application anywhere. I could count probably 6 classes the entire time I was in college that eventually benefited me out of the 120 credits that I had to take, which some classes were 2 credits, some were 3, most of them were 2 or 3, but it was count maybe 6 classes. Anyway, so I started listening to YouTube when I was driving, and I found so many good videos, ones that have just kind of led me in a direction where I was going. 2 of which were Wayne May and Geography of the Book of Mormon. I had always learned some of those things in seminary, and I like church history anyway, so I've always known some of those things, some of those cool stories like Zelph, or where the city of Manti was. I always thought that was pretty fascinating. Well, these videos from him just opened my mind to completely new evidences and evidences of where the Book of Mormon took place, and that it did take place. I always knew it took place, and I believed it was real. This is an example of why college was so disgusting to me. I was so sick of it. I had a world history professor. We were learning about civilizations and what qualifies as civilization and what didn't, and we get over to North and South America, and you could tell he was at least baptized into the church, but he was against it, and he was teaching about how the people over here, they weren't really a civilized society. They weren't civilized in any way. They didn't have any of these written languages or metalworking. They didn't do anything like that. They were just pretty simplistic. So I don't know if you can really call them, there are people living here, yeah, but they weren't really civilized. And it was just like, ultimately try to shut down the Book of Mormon. And I was just like, this guy is so full of it. Like, does he not know anything? Like, of course there's metalworking throughout the Americas. At that point, I believed it was like kind of a North and South America. I kind of lean now towards mostly North America. But anyway, this guy was so full of it, so against the church, and he was not, I didn't enjoy it at all. And one of the many reasons I disliked college. But anyway, Wayne May was excellent. He introduced me to so many other videos. Amberly, I think her last name's Peterson now. It used to be Nelson. Amberly Nelson Peterson. But it was, she had videos on showing how the Law of Moses was practiced in North America, and from archaeological standpoint, just awesome videos. This other one, and I owe a lot to him. His name was Jake Hilton, and he's since left the church, but he had several of these 5 or 6 hour long videos, which, since I drove all the time, I could just watch them in segments, and I didn't really listen to them in segments, and I was enlightened by so much spiritual in-depth search that he had went through. Enjoyed his videos. I felt edified from them. On his last video that he made, it used to be called Mormon Evidence. The channel doesn't exist anymore, but his last video he made, there was just some strange things that was like he was saying some weird stuff and being really critical of the church leaders, and then he came out as like, I've had this vision that I've had my second comforter and stuff. It was really weird. But the beginning stuff, like the earlier stuff that I watched, was really good, really edifying, really in depth, really insightful. Had a lot of stuff about signs of the times that were coming. That's another topic I've always loved. So I enjoyed it. Anyway, going forward, we get to 2019, probably the end of the year. December of 2019, January 2020. I just had this, I don't know, maybe a foreboding feeling, you could call it that something was going to happen, something big was going to happen. I'd also started watching Glenn Beck. I liked political stuff at the time, and I still enjoy some, but I try not to get into it. I felt like I was being informed. Well, January 2020, February 2020, Glenn Beck has this video. It's like, hey, there's this coronavirus that they're talking about in China. I don't know. It might be a good idea to go to the store now and get a few things that you need, just in case things start to get crazy. Not fear-mongering or anything, just like, hey, it might be a good idea to go do this. The next time I was at Walmart, I remembered that, and I felt impressed to get some flour and sugar and vanilla and yeast and stuff like that, and toilet paper, and I wasn't scared or anything. I was like, yeah, I should probably get some extra of this. And March 2020, COVID shuts down pretty much the whole world. But I guess side story. One of these trips we were going to. I was going to Seattle, and the time before that, the week before, me and my wife were going to the Spokane Temple. Well, our babysitters weren't able to watch the kids that day, so I ended up watching the boys in the church next to the Spokane Temple. So a couple days later, I was driving to Seattle, and I had this impression: you better go to the temple now before you aren't able to for a long time. And so I went. I made an appointment that week, and the next day they were closing for, we didn't know how long, but it ended up being over a year and almost a half, about 16 months, 17 months before we were able to go back. So I felt super blessed to be able to have that experience. COVID happens, the world shuts down, and that kind of relieved my that foreboding feeling I had. It was like, yeah, something big happened. That was it. That must have been it. We're still shut down, doing our Zoom meeting churches and stuff like that, and we had a sister that I home taught her, or she was on or either me or my wife, one of the two. She was one of our ministering sisters. She invited us over to do like a book club kind of thing. Never really happened. We went over there one time, and she invited us to start reading this book called The Cleansing of America. And I was like, okay, I'll read it. So I downloaded it on Audible and listened to it. Fascinating book. I loved it. But that foreboding feeling came back, and I was like, man, what is going on? I felt there's something, this was big, but there's something bigger happening soon. Like, there's something going to happen, and we need to know what it is, know how to be ready for it. So I started, this is probably June, around that time, June 2020, and I just started praying. Like, I feel like there's something coming. I feel like something's going to happen soon. Is there something I should be preparing for? Is there, will it help me understand this? And it was probably 2 or 3 weeks of me praying for that. And I think it was July 7th. I actually think it was the 7th of July. I woke up in the morning and I had this word in my head, and it was, I never remember hearing the word before, but it was just stuck in my head. It was harbinger. Harbinger. And I was like, what in the world is Harbinger? What is a Harbinger? I don't know what that is. So I looked it up, and I found out it was like a warning. And one of the first things that you get when you type in Harbinger is a book by Jonathan Cahn, who recognized some things from the Bible and realized that they were paralleling the times that we live in. So I didn't actually read the book, but I watched a few videos on him. He was fascinating. He was a Messianic Jew that believes in Christ. I mean, that's what a Messianic Jew is. But he wrote this book called The Harbinger, pretty much talking about how the events of 9/11 were a judgment on the United States, and showed exact thing, like parallels exactly of what happened before the northern tribes were destroyed or led into captivity in Israel in the Bible, and how those same events were happening to the United States. And you know, I have a very be careful what I say here. The events of 9/11, I was sad by those who were who died in those events, but this opened my mind to how wicked the world really was. Saw the hedge of protection that God had over the United States was breached. It was breached. The security that happened that we had in the United States was breached by those events. And then I watched another video. I learned about the Shemitah cycles, and how every 7 years there's supposed to be a year of rest for the earth, and it was like a warning time. And since we didn't heed the warning the first time, it was like a direct 7 year on the Shemitah cycle exactly that the stock market crashed in 2008. And it was fascinating. I learned about that. We were in year 2020 at the time, and so we had two more Shemitah cycles. There was one in 2015, which we didn't really I kind of learned a little bit later, but that was there's 4 blessings from the Abrahamic covenant. One being the head security, one being prosperity, one being posterity, and then our land. And it's been interesting to see, because in 2015 was when we had the gay marriage was legalized throughout the United States. An attack on posterity, and also there was some, I don't remember the amount of abortions that happened that year was more than any other year that had ever happened up until that point. So there's just like these attacks on posterity. And then there was in 2022, a couple years later, you actually started seeing the fulfillment of the land, the blessing of the land being taken away too, with the enormous amounts of migrants and illegal immigration that came through. Now those are hot topics on debate, but the main thing that I took from this, waking up and learning about harbingers, was that we'd kind of lost our covenant blessings that we were being protected with for so many years. We had security, we had a number of years of prosperity, we had many years of posterity. Our posterity was a above the, I forget what they call it, but the rate that you need to have to sustain a society is like 2.4 or 2.6 kids or something like that. But we were below that, and then the land starting to be taken away too. So I felt like I had understood so much by watching those videos and learning about it. Then soon after, probably 2 weeks after, I was watching videos, and I found one that was a member of the church talking about different signs of the times and how she thought that we were coming up on the second coming, and I thought it was interesting because I always believed that. Up until that time, though, I had this idea that Jesus was just going to come back randomly. We just live your life like every day. He'll be back. I don't know where I got that idea. It's pretty big in the church today, but it's, in my opinion, very flawed. And I woke up to that idea then. I knew there was things that needed to happen before he came back, but this sister was showing detailed things that have happened, that are happening now. Different things with the red heifers, different things with the Temple Institute in Israel, just all sorts of different things. And it was mind opening. Earlier that year, the church had made some changes to the endowment, and I didn't like them. I was questioning them. Why did you got to change it? It was good the way it was. It bothered me a lot. And after watching this video, she had some things in there that answered some of my questions, and I just felt rebuked. And I just felt rebuked for even questioning them like that. And anyway, after watching that video, I felt the need. It's like, I need to be closer to my mom and to my family. Because when tribulation does come, I don't know when it would come, or didn't have any idea that way, but I had the conviction that it would come, and that we were soon to have tribulation. I had the thought, I want to be able to help my family. I want to be there where I can help others. That I could help others where I was at in Priest River, but I wanted to be able to help my family and to be able to see them more often. So we made the plans to move to Alamo. We didn't know if we were going to stay here in Alamo. I still don't know if we're going to stay here, how long we're going to stay here, but we've been here for about 3.5 years now. But anyway, I kept watching videos, and I kept finding more and more things that have just pointed me to the second coming, more prophecies that are coming true. I mean, it was amazing how much was opened to my mind and to my heart through this time. And even through things like having a word in your head when you wake up that I've never heard before. How in the detail God is in your life, in my life. It was amazing how that happened. So fast forward to March 2021, we moved back to Alamo, and I moved. I drove the truck down first, then flew back up, and we drove down with our car and found a house here in Alamo because of, and this prices were starting to get really high when we were deciding to move, at least in North Idaho. So we didn't know if we'd be even able to sell our house because of how much people were wanting for houses up there. But I mean, they were willing to pay it, and we were able to make some money off it and put a good down payment on our house here in Alamo. So it was a blessing. The whole thing was a blessing. I should rewind a little bit, 2018, we found out we were expecting another boy. This is after we had moved up to Bayview, Idaho for a few months before we ended up moving to Priest River. And Kelsey's OB, her doctor, was the one member of the church within that whole area that was an OB. And we thought that was pretty significant, and so we used him as a doctor. Come March 1st, 2019 was when our second son, Thomas, was born. He had some complication that would have put his life in jeopardy, and because of that doctor's experience, he had unique experience to know what was happening beforehand. And so my wife had to have an emergency C-section, and all worked out, but we felt incredibly blessed to be led to Idaho for different things. I was able to learn some different skills while I was up there, and because of the doctors and for Thomas, and our daughter was born up there as well, and then we moved back to Alamo, and now we have a house here, and I still get the chance to drive a lot and to learn a lot, and it's been a huge blessing to know that Heavenly Father is in the details of our lives. He's been in the details of my life. I know He's in the details of your lives as well. And He wants to help us. He wants to lead us. He wants to help us return to Him. And I know that He has provided so many people and blessings for us to be able to do that, to have those blessings in our lives. I don't know how to say it any better than that, but that He leads us, He guides us, He is in every aspect of our lives. And I just want to bear that testimony to you, and hope if any of you are struggling with knowing that you'll know that I know He knows, or that I know He cares about you, and that He is wanting you to return to Him. And I say that in His Son, Jesus Christ's name. Amen.